Just like that, it's Friday. I'm Jim Check, and with me, Ian Burns. You got a little tuft of hair there going away there. You're going to have to give that a little bit of a pull there. You got a little cowlick going on there.
How do you know I'm not upside down? And this is just a trick of camera work.
It's the really big show. We got lots. I mean, we got a lot today. I mean, it's actually a bigger show than the really big show. It's a big, big, big show. Here's some of the headlines. Carney addresses nation. Sounds more like a beer commercial, though. BC NDP, party of darkness and closed doors? You have to question that. Trump pulls Canadian invite as row heats up. Carney quips, ask a better question as he whisks away. Bessette claims Canada of little consequence. Cute speech. Oh, where's my voice today? Cute speech, but where are the results? Poilievre responds to Carney's speech at Davos. And still, carbon taxes? Can Canada defend itself? Champagne, he's making a comeback. Champagne claims everyone going forward with China. NATO chief says China is a threat. Ford wants boycott on Chinese EVs. Liberals claim guardrails, but can't really name any and claim EV jobs coming. And he's still Justin, and he's back in with us again. Why is the media so silent on the conflicts? Cash register rings for the well-connected. Of course it does. Offshore tax dodgers need to be named. Feds put cuts at 40K, and CBC is just a propaganda machine, and we're going to show you that again. Left media full of activists. Why are left governments scared of free speech? Quebec now pushing back on climate agenda. That's a good one. Quebec now pushing back on climate agenda? Who would have thought? Everyone coming to the realization that the climate grift weakened economies. Canada? We're still on the fence, I guess, or are we still all in? Gold and silver on fire. Elon lays out the vision of tomorrow. Coming clean. Wow, you got to see for that one. BC decriminalization experiment now over. Now what? Peace talks heat up with Russia. And Zelensky calls out the EU. And American numbers talk and with impact. All that, a lot more in the really big show. That's a lot of stuff to cover off, and that's not even everything. There's a lot in here. A lot. And again, like, share, subscribe, send us a sausage roll, whatever you can. We're going to show you some of the people that do comment, because we love the comments, we love everything. So here's somebody that wrote in and says, because yesterday we said that we would sell our souls for sausage rolls, and they said, so you can be bought. Well, we said we'd be bought for 1.5 billion, and we responded to that person and said, as long as it was payable in sausage rolls. Somebody says the way we dress. Lots of other great comments. We're appreciative of all those comments, and we're getting shared on some really big platforms. Yesterday, we broke a record. I think we had 9,000 on it at some point on all the platforms, because we stream also on other platforms at the same time. We stream on X, and we stream on, I think it's on Facebook too, and we're going to try and open up that streaming to many more platforms as well as we move forward on this. So again, like, share, subscribe, comment, tell us where you're watching from. Get this out to as many people as you can. Independent media, this is the year, 2026. This is the breakout year for independent media. And again, we appreciate every one of you, and we leave the comments wide open because we believe your voice matters as well. But we'll kick it off, though, with Mark Carney. I mean, his speech there, I was expecting some results and what we're going to do, but it sure sounded like a beer commercial, because Trump laid down the smack there the other day. You said that just in 2 sentences. He laid that down, and when he says that Canada exists because America lets him, what was the words he used actually? Something like we exist. Lives because of the United States. And then he says, Canada thrives because we are Canadian. That doesn't say much. It sounds like a Molson's commercial to me.
It sounds like circular reasoning to
It
me.
sounds like a loop, right?
What would I know?
We exist because we exist. I don't know. Anyway.
It's like, you're not going to win any philosophy competitions with that one, I don't think.
Rosie Barton there doing some defense here. Let's listen in Rosie on the speech there that Carney made, because there wasn't a lot in that speech. It was a lot of circular arguments for sure. Go ahead with Rosie here.
To build inclusively, in full partnership with Indigenous peoples, inclusively to ensure that AI benefits all Canadians, to respect diversity, to accept others and to combat hate so that every Canadian feels free to be themselves and can thrive in the greatest country on earth. When we live our values, we grow as individuals and we build as a people. When we're kind, kindness grows. When we're united, unity grows. When we're Canadian, inclusive, fair, ambitious, Canada grows. Canada and the United States have built a remarkable partnership in the economy, in security, and in rich cultural exchange. But Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian.
The last paragraph, I think, that was important to highlight for people because, in fact, it was a direct response to Donald Trump, and it wasn't in the prepared remarks. It was added in. I'm not sure if it was ad-libbed or added in, but the Prime Minister has talked about the strong economic relationship with the United States, but then he went on to say, in direct response to the President, Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian. We choose Canada. So we had been trying to get him to respond to the comments from the President. He clearly knows what he said and wanted to make it clear to Canadians that, again, that kind of remark, while he is highlighting the partnership that Canada and the U.S. continue to have and continue to want to have, let's be clear, that kind of remark is probably not entirely helpful in this moment. And the Prime Minister, again, sort of laying down his own mark.
I have no idea what either one of them are saying.
Well, I mean, if you think Mount Carney is an empty vessel, then Rosemary Barton isn't going to beef things up, really, is she? But very, very strange. Very, very weird speech. And it was like nowhere near as serious or even as consistent as his Davos speech. It was so peculiar. And again, yesterday we were talking about, weren't we, how his Václav Havel adaptation, about how you shouldn't live the lie of communism. He's saying we shouldn't live the lie of a benign American global hegemony. We shouldn't bother with that anymore. People have pointed out, including us, that you could equally apply that logic to many things, including lots of culture war phenomena on gender and race and all the rest of it. We're all familiar with it by this point. And yet in the speech, it was this speech could maybe have been made by Justin Trudeau, except for the references to the Battle of the Plains of Abraham. Other than that, it could almost have been a Trudeau speech. It was all kinds of progressive ideology and we're gonna clamp down on hate and things like that. Just totally vague, meaningless language that I'm certain would have had Václav Havel spinning around in his grave. But apparently, again, no ability to self-analyze, self-reflect, to recognize that maybe what he's saying is a little bit inconsistent with what he said in Davos. And then the other thing and I recommend, even if you don't speak French, go on X, go on Twitter, and have a look at what Québécois are saying about this speech. They are not happy about it, because he referenced the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, 1759. That's when the British under James Wolfe came, and almost accidentally, because James Wolfe was such a madhead, and he went off reservation and went and accidentally conquered Quebec. Because that happened, that sort of created Canada. It was like an accidental creation. It was like, and Wolfe died as well, so it's not like he got to live to see it. He referenced that and he said that was the start of Canada and our peoples coming together. Talking about the First Nations, the British and the French. That has not pleased Québécois at all, particularly of the more nationalist bent, because they look at that as like Al Nakba. They look at that as like the disaster. That was when everything went downhill because they were conquered by the hated English. But he's trying to wrap this all up into some idea of like Canadian harmony and peace. Again, it's just not reality. And once again, and I've got a feeling I'm going to say this every day for the rest of my life, or the rest of the time we do this show, I agree with Mark Carney in his Davos speech. I choose not to live the lie, and I'm not going to live that lie about this fantastical idea of how Canada was created.
when I read the press release that said that they were going to meet in Quebec there, and also he was going to address the nation, I expected something like here's what we got done in the first year. These are our plans. And again, this was an ideological speech that made no sense. It was like it was written on the back of a napkin after somebody consumed a few beers, and they were looking at the bottle of Molson's and then saying, well, let's just use this. We are Canadian. I'm pretty sure that's what was on the bottom of Molson's there. They used to be on the Montreal when they played in the Molson's arena there with the Montreal Canadiens. There was nothing in the speech. There was nothing that Canadians could put their finger on and say, yes, that's what's getting done. It was an empty, empty speech, and it was full of the ideology of the past decade of Justin Trudeau. Just, you nailed it there. And then here's Rosie trying to defend it. And, like the buckets of sausage rolls surely don't help CBC because they can't see very clearly as to what Canadians want. They want answers. They want stuff they can put on their kitchen table, not more of the same. And I was going to play more of these clips, but I mean, there's not much to them. I was going to play another clip and just, basically him saying about the rich cultural exchange. It's a lot of nothing. Canadians want to deal with the Americans. Like there's, again, Ian points it out. You can point it out again if you want. Consult a globe. What's important to Canada?
Buy one. Yeah, get one.
Buy a globe. Buy a globe. Look at the globe and look who we're next to. Look where we do our trade. Just buy a globe. Just for the,
just even just like a penguin history of North America or something like that. Just like the most basic, and just get a 300-pager paperback history book about Canadian history. And you'll learn that it isn't just geography. Geography would tell you, if you just look at geography, it'd say, I can guess what this arrangement is like. But you can read the books. You can probably even read a 200-pager. You could probably even watch like a half-an-hour documentary or something like that if you're strapped for time, and you'll see that we live. Look, it doesn't make me feel happy to say this. A lot of the things that I say, I don't feel particularly happy about. But we live at the United States' pleasure. It's true. What Donald Trump said, hate him if you will, it was expressed in a vulgar way, etc., yes. But we live at their pleasure. To deny that, and then to employ mindless partisan circular reasoning, and just to list off loads of things like, when we care about two-spirit, LGBT, no, that's not really good enough. We're living in, as you said it, mate. You told us we're living in a world of realpolitik. Geopolitics is back. That kind of thing is not going to sustain your independence. That's not going to sustain your sovereignty, as you like to say. Denial, he even said, nostalgia is not a strategy. Yeah, why don't you listen to your own advice? Denial is not a strategy either. It's just more, it's a bit infantile. And as usual, a senior liberal politician is insulting the intelligence of the average Canadian. And something else that I forgot to mention, sorry, almost everything in Carney's reign so far has been a repudiation of, a rejection of Justin Trudeau's everything. Justin Trudeau's governing philosophy, governing style, everything about Justin Trudeau has been pretty clearly and obviously rejected by Mark Carney. And yet in this speech, as I said, it sounded like a Trudeau speech. I don't think it's a coincidence that it was, this was a liberal event. I think he was trying to cheer up his liberal servants. But he also said, he listed prime ministers, only about 5 or something, a very small number of Canadian prime ministers from history. And one of them was Justin Trudeau. And he talks about the great things that these prime ministers did, Mulroney and I can't remember who else it was, but a lot of the big boys. And he said, and Justin Trudeau for what he did on reconciliation and something else. It's just weird, It's Trudeau now he's being brought back in, or Carney's going to he's going to chill out with the Trudeau repudiation. It just seemed it was politics anyway.
And the big problem that I keep saying it's the government funded, especially the state broadcaster and all the media that lives off of it. Here's another journalist calls himself independent. They basically put out talking like, Carney, our values must be fought for. That's what we're doing. Can we just ask questions? Because yesterday we talked about Rebel News. Rebel News, we're going to do a piece on. We're going to actually see if we can get Ezra Levant on here too. He embarrassed media. He got the scoop of the year so far. The scoop of the year. Completely embarrassed media in Canada. And the same media that basically blacklisted him. The Carney government has gone, well, Trudeau too, has gone after him and tried to say they're not media. They blocked them from the leadership event, saying they're not journalists. The CBC said they felt unsafe around independent journalists. They got the scoop of the year. It shows you, and they have access to the CBC and the government feed have access to these people, and they don't ask the questions. And that is the question that you should be asking. Why aren't the media asking the tough questions? Because accountability makes us stronger. Accountability and transparency. And these liberals have not faced accountability and transparency for over a decade now.
Yeah. And the reason is, in my guess would be, as somebody that's been in this industry for quite a while, I think it's an informed guess, let's say, is that the CBC editors, who usually have business, direct contact with people like Chrystia Freeland, they'll have sent her text messages or had phone calls with her, and she said, I don't want to do an interview yet. That's it. And they just went, oh, okay, my lord, and left it at that. Ezra Levant obviously wouldn't even have bothered to. I mean, maybe he did send an email, but it would have just been ignored anyway. But he didn't bother to accept that Chrystia Freeland wasn't ready to speak yet about the biggest scandal in Canadian politics in years. Instead, he flew to Switzerland and got her. She was walking down the street, doorstepped her, basically. Sometimes you have to do that as a journalist. When an extremely powerful person is refusing to be held to account and just choosing not to speak about a great scandal, sometimes you actually have to do that as a journalist. There's a fine line. You don't just do it randomly. It's a last resort, but sometimes you have to do it. The fact that CBC didn't kind of tells you everything, really, doesn't it, about how compliant they are and how they just they sort of prioritize these relationships, don't they? And they prioritize the appearance of being well-mannered and civilized and polite. It's like, oh no, we would never do what that hooligan Levant does. But in the process, they demean themselves and they relegate themselves to they're even less important than they already were, because we're seeing this side by side here.
They're irrelevant. They're so
and Levant
irrelevant. Has
just made them look like fools.
Yeah. Here's some that were actually trying to do their job, because somebody went there. They watched that Ezra Levant do his thing, and here they are trying to get a question answered from Mark Carney. His response, I don't know if you can hear it because it's very quiet, but we'll play the clip and see if you can hear it, and then we'll tell you what it is.
Okay, what else are you going to do for affordability for Canadians? How are you going to execute?
What about Lutnick's comments?
What about Lutnick's comments?
There you go. There's actually some reporters asking questions that's more like American-style journalism, when they're asking questions. And his response was, that's a boring question. Think of a better one.
Yep. I thought it was only these crazy right-wing populists that behaved like that with the press. But apparently it's our dear, precious, immaculately dressed and well-mannered Prime Minister Mark Carney that does it too. Is anybody scratching their heads? Are any Carney sycophants now being like, oh, wait, that's kind of what Trump does? I don't think so. I'm not going to hold my breath.
To be fair to Trump, he would have walked over there and answered questions. He would have definitely walked over and took the questions. He always does. They do not. They refuse to be held accountable.
He would have walked down. Yeah, he would have walked down, wouldn't he?
They refuse to be held accountable. They refuse to respond to emails. They refuse to respond to emails. And this thing here, and he's done this twice now. That's a boring question. Remember about the pipeline? Are we going to build a pipeline? That's boring. How is it boring? One of the reporters asked affordability, because that's what I expected from that speech, was affordability. Because if you looked at the things, the 7 things they were going to talk about at this summit or whatever they're having, affordability was one of them. There was no update on affordability. There was nothing. There's nothing, absolutely nothing. And then Trump did respond to some of this rhetoric, and he uninvited him to the Board of Peace. And that's kept the people on the internet busy with, we saved $1 billion, and this is just your invitation is withdrawn. I mean, this is just like rhetoric and nonsense, and who cares, right? Like it's just another distraction. But it's got the left media all worked up, and this is what they're focusing their attention on. Again, Canadians want answers on affordability. Canadians want an answer on the industrial carbon tax. Canadians want answers on a pipeline. But here's another CBC piece here where they're saying they're trying to get questions in here. Listen, CBC, there's some reporters actually, because I've never seen her before, Olivia, actually trying to get questions answered. Maybe she hasn't got the memo yet from Rosie and David Cochrane.
And reporters tried to ask the Prime Minister for his reaction to the fact that he's been disinvited, but he did not stop to speak to reporters either. This news that he was disinvited did come quite late yesterday after this first day of the Cabinet Planning Forum had wrapped up, and the Prime Minister was actually out to dinner with his ministers and secretaries of state when that happened. I will say, though, that reporters did try to speak to Carney just before he left the Citadel here in Quebec City, where this planning forum is taking place. A question was put to him at that time about Trump, and he said something to the effect that he didn't like that question. Come up with a better question is actually what he said. And
so is that how it works?
What's the defense?
Is that how it works? You have to get good questions vetted by the Prime Minister before you get to ask them? Because I've seen that. Because if you watch the Global...
You've got to give him time to think about it.
if you go watch the Global interview that they gave, the year-end interview, it sure looked like those questions were approved. Like when the questions with Mark Carney. Because they were just like, there was no follow-ups, nothing, just like read from the list, that's the questions. Whereas with Polyev, it was like attack dog, attack dog, attack dog. It looked pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like Global
and he tends to engage them as well.
Yeah. And then
By the way,
you put the
Charles MacDonald, we missed it. He's given some more sausage roll pocket money. Thank you very much, Charles.
We do appreciate Charles. Charles is definitely the biggest supporter of this news channel here, and we do appreciate that, Charles, all the time. Again, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and if you can afford to make contributions to independent media, by all means, you can do that. And but make sure you take care of your family first. Don't give more than you can. And in these trying times, make sure family comes first. But we do appreciate you can like, share, subscribe. That'd be more than enough for us as well. Scott Bessent has a reply to Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, has a reply for Mark Carney as well.
Overall relationship, then things, if there are glitches, if there are hiccups, then they can jump on phone calls and de-escalate very quickly. My counterpart is the Vice Premier, Hu Lifeng. He and I met here, and especially in the Chinese system, they believe that the leader's consensus must be implemented. That's kind of a verbatim quote. So President Trump will be visiting Beijing in April. Party Chair Xi will be coming either to DC or Mar-a-Lago, probably over the summer. Xi will be coming to the G20. President Trump has expressed an interest in going to APEC.
Is that the right section that you wanted there?
That was him talking about how he's talking about how things are great. Things are great with China, but the bit that we want is, well, I've put it in there in the document. Yeah. We want it from about 2014. That's when he talks about Canada.
We want. Yeah.
Well, those semiconductors stop flowing.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney got a lot of attention for his speech here at Davos this week. He warned that the global world order is in the midst of a, quote, rupture, not a transition. He said that great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. He's clearly talking about the U.S. Is he right? Has there been a rupture?
Well, I think he's probably also talking about China using the rare earth choker collar. And, again, President Trump, on October 8th, China issued a statement saying that for every good sold in the world that had 0.01% Chinese rare earths in it, they wanted an export license. It would have brought the global economy to a halt. President Trump threatened 100% tariffs, and the Chinese came to the table, and we did it on behalf of the whole world. So I think Prime Minister Carney should say thank you, rather than giving this value signaling speech. I don't know. It strikes me that Mark Carney has gone back to his old days. He was the UN climate czar. He's tried to morph his position. He's saying, oh, Canada's going to become an energy powerhouse. Which of those does not make sense?
He also said that, quote, the middle powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. I think some people are a bit surprised at the relationship between the US and Canada and some of Carney's remarks. This is coming from someone who's been historically one of our closest allies. Do you worry at all about the consequences of that relationship deteriorating, like, for example, pushing Canada to develop a closer relationship with China?
Well, again, his trip to China was scheduled long before any of this, and Canada should trade with China. Canada should trade with China. President Trump said that. So Prime Minister Carney should do what's best for Canada. In the context of the United States, I'll point out the Canadian economy is smaller than the economy of Texas.
That's good there.
So should he?
Lots of interesting insight into how Canada is perceived in the White House. Put it that way. He goes on. He continues to talk about. He basically says similar to what Howard Lutnick said, which is like if you want to attack the United States, you want to go off and get into bed with the Chinese. Don't expect a great deal with the United States. Again, so that's. I mean, he's a lot more powerful and serious than Howard Lutnick, but now that's two very senior members of the Trump White House have made that basically threat. This is it's getting pretty intense, but don't expect to see any analysis of this in the mainstream media. I mean, you can keep your head in the sand if you want, but it's out there. Very easy to watch this. This is Politico.
This is the
It's
biggest.
quite worrying.
This is the point he brings up is the one that you and I have been bringing up forever. This climate czar, the head of the Net Zero Alliance, when he got interviewed with the UK there, I think that was Bloomberg, he said that he's still that person of values. Climate czar, I mean, we're going to see later, almost every nation is moving away. Canada still seems stuck in values, ideology, and climate net zero policies that destroy economies. And we're going to show you more of that later. And here's the thing that I expected him to address. And here's the graph that we put up. We put this graph up so many times. That's what needs to be addressed in real terms. That's what needs to be addressed in real terms. That's not being addressed. Canada should be way up on that list. And it's not.
Really
The CBC would write the article that Canada is, like doing way better than Luxembourg. I mean, that's, they would spin it that way. You know what I mean? Canada makes Luxembourg look terrible. You know what I mean?
I think they're, I'm sorry to say, my friends at the CBC, I think they're even lower grade than that. I think they would write an article along the lines of, this graph says, or this chart says Canada not doing so well on GDP per capita. But does GDP per capita really mean anything? It'd be something like that. Like, is it really the same as like LGBT rights and saving the turtles? Some say no.
Yeah, no interprovincial reform, no defense dollars, no infrastructure follow through. Just more rhetoric, more values-based speech, more climate net zero. Canada's going to be a energy superpower with windmills and solar panels and Chinese EVs. But here's another piece from somebody on CBC that calls out the speech here too. This is let's listen in on this. Needs a second to get it here. This is we might have some interruption here too because we have a fire alarm test.
Okay, go ahead.
What
was your thought on it? I know there's a lot of criticism that there isn't a deal with the U.S. I mean, whether it was Prime Minister Poilievre, Prime Minister Singh, Prime Minister May, I don't know if it's the Canadian Prime Minister's fault or the President of the United States' fault in that particular case, because Europe thought they had a deal and then they were threatened, and here we are. I mean, what do you make of what Mark Carney said yesterday and where things kind of stand on that?
I mean, I think the extent to which the Prime Minister's style and syntax and look and feel resonated as strong leadership speaks to the level of leadership we had become accustomed
what,
to.
What was your
country.
thought on it? I know there's a lot of criticism that there isn't a deal with the U.S. I mean, whether it was Prime Minister Polyev, Prime Minister Singh, Prime Minister May, I don't know if it's the Canadian Prime Minister's fault or the President of the United States' fault in that particular case, because Europe thought they had a deal.
Very rude. You're talking over your guest.
It's just like, holy cow. And there's just an alarm testing going on as well. And he's run that video on top of each other twice. Anyway, she goes and talks about nothing done. Nothing done, nothing done, nothing done. We won't play it again because we won't double up on it. Again, if we just had a little bit of that $1.55 billion, we could probably do more. But I would like to say David Cochrane, I mean, his title should be apologist for the Liberal Party, because that's all he does, right? It's steady making excuses. Like, you know, even though Carney has shortcomings, now he said, well, if it was Polly, if it was Singh, if it was anybody, nobody could do a deal with Trump. That's not true. David Cochrane.
Totally. And, you know, like some other countries out there have sort of pretty stable relationships with the United States. And I mean the United States under the control of Donald Trump. One of those countries that comes to mind is Japan. It hasn't been perfect by any means, but, you know, it's a lot steadier, isn't it? And a lot more stable than the relationship between Canada and the United States.
Mexico is basically flying under the radar. Mexico's doing, like, there's no noise about Mexico. Mexico's just like quietly doing his thing. And, you know, like, Mexico, they said, has a better deal than Canada because Mexico didn't do all this posturing and ego stuff. And
well, they do. Right now they do. 25% to 35%. So
yeah, they have a better deal
that's undeniable.
Yeah.
But no, Trump, you know, he does get along with certain people, doesn't he? Like Benjamin Netanyahu. I know that is a much more complicated relationship. I'm not naive about that. But it's pretty sort of strong relationship. You know, it does matter that, and Cochrane there talks about Europe, and he said, you know, Europe thought they had a deal, and then they don't. No European leaders really have a good relationship with Donald Trump, except maybe Mark Rutte, but he's not. You know, he's a leader of NATO. He's not a leader of a European country anymore. Keir Starmer, you know, the Keir Starmer Trump thing. That's a very fake. That's an obviously phony relationship. Like they obviously despise one another, or at least don't really like each other very much. That's clear. That's very obvious. So yeah, maybe it's about the strength of the relationships, but it's also how you conduct yourself. Trump's very sensitive to perceived attacks, isn't he? And maybe that's why the Japanese have managed to kind of get away with a lot more, because the Japanese just keep their mouths shut, don't they? And they just keep it at business.
Yeah, I know, it's wild. And Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the opposition, has responded. We won't play his speech, though, but his speech contained more of, you know, he even commended his speech in Davos there and saying, you know, like standing up for our sovereignty. But he also said, where's the meat and potatoes, like the old Wendy's commercial? If we're going to do beer ads, we want to do the Wendy's commercial and say, where's the beef? Where is the beef? That's the question that needs to be answered. Where's the beef? Where's the pipeline? Where's like, I follow the resource sector. I was a buying site controller. I follow the resource sector quite closely. I don't see financings. I don't see anything. I don't see capital flows. I don't see anything. It takes 20 years to get a mine site built here in Canada. Like, something needs to start happening. We set up a projects office, paid some vast amount of salary. Nothing's happening. We set up 3 more offices, 1 for housing. The GST thing is not even pushed through. The removal of the GST, the GST on first-time homebuyers, still not approved. But what has been approved is the $150 million extra for the CBC. And obviously a lot of sausage rolls too, because like David Cochrane is embarrassing himself, literally embarrassing himself on a daily basis. It's embarrassing to watch him, you know, being in this profession. It's absolutely embarrassing to watch David Cochrane embarrass himself in front of
It's a good job. Nobody else watches him except us.
Yeah, I mean, it's painful to watch him. And I thought Rosie Barton was bad, but David Cochrane definitely is trying to go for the trophy there this year of being just an apologist for the Liberal Party. Basically, in what he did with that Iran interview, all kinds of stuff. CBC has lost their way. They are definitely not the voice of Canada, and they need to be defunded. I mean, I never used to say that. I thought CBC was the best thing going on. But the way they're acting now, the way that they protect the Liberal Party is absolutely atrocious. And you know, and Rebel News made it so like obvious to everybody that Rebel News got the interview that, that Chrystia Freeland and the CBC have their cell phone numbers. They could have asked her at any time. Nothing.
Well, they also know where she lives. They'll know all sorts about what she does, what she gets up to. They knew she was going to be at Davos, obviously.
Absolutely.
Or they could have guessed she would have been.
And here's the federal carbon tax is still, and this is Franco pointing this out, and Pierre Poilievre is now pointing out, this federal carbon tax still hurting Canadians. Like, it's at the pump, and this is what, like all these people that hate Trump and all this stuff, and then you go look at the Americans thanking them at the pump when they're seeing gasoline prices below $2. Because that's immediately in their pocket, right? Instead of putting $150 in the, in the tank, they only are putting in, like $100, because gasoline matters. Your heating bill matters. These are costs that come right out of your pocket. And and then somebody says, you guys are, Pierre, you guys lover. Well, I don't know what this means, but Pierre, you guys lover. No, we want accountability.
Barney needs to be deported back to the UK. Is that me? Am I Barney? The drunken friend? Homer Simpson's drunk friend? Homer.
Hilarious. That's hilarious. Anyway, nobody wants accountability. Well, why wouldn't anybody want accountability with your tax dollars? Wouldn't you want accountability? Wouldn't you want accountability? We're going to show you some stuff there, and just tell me if this is all cool. You know what I mean? If this is all cool, the waste, the fraud, the abuse, all of it's just cool, and no pipeline. All cool, eh? All cool. Here's Anita Anand explaining. Here's some more delusions from Anita Anand.
The Canadian government is the Canadian military looking at scenarios to defend Canada in the event of an American attack.
The work that we are doing in terms of foreign affairs is to grow the Canadian Armed Forces, to invest significantly in the Canadian Armed Forces, and to always ensure that the defense and protection of our country is first and foremost on top of our list of priorities. In terms of CAF planning, those are questions for the Chief of Defense Staff, and I refer you to them.
Minister, what would you say is the greatest threat to Canada's national security today?
Canada's national security is focused on ensuring strength economically, as well as strength from a military standpoint. That's why we're putting $80 billion in our national defense, and that is why we are going to continue to diversify supply chains and trading partners.
That's good. That's good. Hey, you can't listen to that. I mean, I could do those speeches too. That's why we're putting in $7 zillion over the next 400 years into our national defense. How about something right now?
This is not I don't think this is hyperbole. This is really not an exaggeration. She can't put 10 words together.
No.
It's I just can't believe that this woman. I can't get out of my head the amount of articles that I've read about this woman and how highly rated she is behind the scenes. Now everybody thinks she's like got a brain the size of Manitoba, and she's just like the absolute wizard behind the scenes, like real, like seriously high caliber human being. This is all I've ever read about this woman. Then I see her speak, and I'll repeat it. She cannot put 10 words together that belong next to each other and that flow one to the other. She can't do it. Yeah. She makes Mark Carney look like Martin Luther King. She makes Melanie Jolie look good. You know, I don't know what it is. Like, it could be the case that she's been restricted from saying what she actually thinks, and she's sort of stumbling over herself because she has to make stuff up that she doesn't believe in. I mean, theoretically that could be the case, but even then, if you're willing to accept that and you're just going to tell lies or say things you don't believe in, you could at least sort of act a bit more professional. It's painful to watch her every time. It hurts to watch her.
And the activist media there, the question is, could Canada stand up to the Americans? Like, why would you ask such a stupid question? Is that just for your base of people that you want to get rabid, that are you're gonna? I mean, I think it's a think tank to put out. I think we wouldn't even last 2 days, and I would say 2 days would be a stretch. It's ridiculous. Like we have.
It's just not even. It's such an absurd question that it's like, why would you even plan for that? Why would you even talk about that? It's so absurd to the idea that we could even go for a second toe-to-toe with the Americans, or indeed that any country. I think even China, if you take nuclear weapons out of it, China couldn't even go head-to-head with America for more than a few days. They would just be absolutely obliterated. The idea that we could.
They would choke off their energy, and that would just watch them like die a painful death. It's absolutely absurd. And the number one thing is America's not invading Canada. I'll bet everything I have, America's not invading Canada. And I mean, just putting out those questions is for the people that watch the CBC, so they can get all freaked out and hate. And, you can put 12 articles up on CBC about TDS articles and drive hatred to our best trading partner and the people that we rest comfortably underneath every day. We go to sleep comfortably under the protection of the Americans from Russia. That is our neighbor, Russia.
But you also, and China, I guess, but you also can't, I just think the attitude shouldn't be to talk about it in this way, really. Like, how are we going to fight the Americans? The attitude should be, how can we influence them so that, like, that obviously never happens? Because that's something that we can't possibly allow that to happen, because we would be wiped out. We haven't got a chance. So how do we persuade them? How do we get friendly with them? How do we influence them in any way at all so that they're nice to us, basically, and that they don't do things like that? But we can't forget either that the Liberal Party's prospects, their popularity in the polls, is inextricably linked. There's direct causation between their popularity in the polls and how scared the population is of the United States, or how angry the population is about the United States. Those two things are completely connected. So whenever you see the temperature being turned up a little bit in that department, just bear that in mind, that as that temperature goes up, so do the Liberals' poll ratings. That's, put yourself in the shoes of a Liberal Party strategist. That's hard to resist, isn't it? If you can just turn the dial up just a little bit, and you see instantly, a little bit of a delay, you see your popularity increase. It's like, I mean, that's very hard to resist, isn't it? Especially for politicians who aren't exactly known for their morals.
So one of the things we try to inform you here, we try to give you some knowledge so that you don't listen to this propaganda that comes out there. And here's a song that they should be playing in their minds. There's like, it's an old song, I think from the 70s, it might even be the 60s. I got a brand new roller skate, you got a brand new key, why don't we get together? You know what I mean? Canada needs to compete. Canada needs to compete. We have what the Americans want. That's true. We have the resources. But we don't have the ability, we don't have the political will to get them out of the ground. They're no good to anybody stuck beneath the earth. They're no good to anybody. It takes forever just to get drill permits. I'm for the mining industry. You can't get an exploration permit here in Canada in due time. Like, it's ridiculous. We block ourselves so that we can stand at the podium and talk about how the Americans are going to come and invade us. We are our own biggest problem. We have self-sabotaged our resource sector for the past 11 years. And it is, and the media has been corrupted because they don't ask the questions and hold them to account, because they should say, that's ridiculous. When are we going to see some results? When do we get a pipeline? When do we get some, move? You opened up a projects office. What's done? What's done? What's done? What's done? Show me the beef.
Yep.
Here's, for Fool of the Day, we're going to have to give it to Francois Philippe Champagne. We got that new thing. There you go. Who's your pick? I don't know. Anita and Ann might have had it. So, right in the middle there. So we got this new thing. So you can pick between Fool of the Day, between Anita and Ann, and Francois Philippe Champagne. But let's roll it on Francois. We haven't heard from Francois for a while.
China is the second largest economy in the world, is our second largest trading partner. And I can tell you, talking to my colleagues, many of them were in Davos, everyone has found a strategic path forward with China. And in this way, Canada is no different. We will always act in the best interests of Canada. And we're very, open to engage with partners around the world.
Everyone is engaging with China. Everyone.
Yeah, who's doing well? As we've said a number of times, who has done well out of that arrangement? I would love it if he could explain to me, if he could provide a comprehensive list of the countries that have done well in that arrangement with China. Because I'm obsessed with this kind of thing. I spend my spare time reading about this sort of thing. That's how much of a dork I am. And I genuinely can't think of a country that's done. I mean, in some ways, you could argue the Americans have kind of benefited a little bit because it helped bring inflation down quite a lot over the years. But obviously, the costs were so great, like the destruction of industry and all the rest of it, that, I mean, they kind of lost, didn't they, overall, the United States? Who's done well? The Japanese, maybe? I mean, I just can't think of a single country that's done well, but I'm sure that Francois-Philippe Champagne has got it all figured out and he's done his homework.
Thank you to Diana for the contribution. We appreciate it as well. Diana's a regular viewer here.
Thank you, Diana.
Appreciate it. Francois-Philippe Champagne is like, again, where's the beef, Francois? You talk about all these things you're going to get done. Nothing gets done. Nothing gets done. And
I know where the beef is, mate. It's locked up behind a glass case in case somebody steals it because it's so expensive.
What they haven't, the report of the question is, what's changed with China in a year? Mark Carney identified China as the #1 security threat to Canada. What's changed to all of a sudden throw that out the window? What's changed? Nothing that I can think of, and nothing if not worse. So what's changed? And this is now the rhetoric, and again, the government propaganda outlet there continues to just like, oh, China's more, what Rosie Barton said, they're more certain and predictable than the United States. That is absolute, what do you want to say? BS, absolute BS. And here's Mark Ruth here telling us how, and he talks about Canada here and Chinese influence, and if China's a threat. We're going to listen to this, and the Arctic here.
Last year, under his leadership, NATO collectively reached that famous 2%, which we agreed 10 years ago. I asked the room, I said, big countries like Spain and Italy and Belgium and Canada reaching that 2%, would it have ever happened if President Trump would not have been re-elected? No. And then in June in The Hague, we agreed on this 5% defense spending, including the 3.5% on core defense, equalizing with the US. Would that ever have happened if President Trump would not have been re-elected as President 47 of the United States? Absolutely not. And now today, this agreement on working collectively on this deal getting done on the Arctic region, I think we can really commend him for taking that leadership role. He is the leader of the free world. He is the leader of the most powerful nation on earth, the biggest ally in NATO. He is doing exactly what I hope he would do when he was re-elected, knowing him from his first term in office.
What do you say to the critics who look at what has happened in the result of some of the things the president has said, and look at countries like Canada that the prime minister went to Beijing and is making deals with China, France that is welcoming Chinese investment inside Europe, the UK just signed off on a giant Chinese embassy in London. Do you think that there's a change in the way leaders are dealing with China in particular?
Well, of course, it's not up to me to comment on what individual allies are doing in terms of their relationship with China. I think collectively as NATO, we have a position. The position is that we should not be naive. I can tell you, Brett, these huge investments the Chinese are making in the military are not there to organize parades in Beijing. As the military in Russia are not there to organize parades in Moscow. They are there to be used. Russia is using them against the Ukrainians. And China, we know their ambitions in the Indo-Pacific. And again, here it is the United States who is playing a huge role here to make sure that the Indo-Pacific stays safe. And as NATO and the Indo-Pacific, under President Trump's leadership, we work more and more together.
And finally, when you...
That's good. Thank you to Luke, first of all, and thank you to Diana for the contributions as well. We do appreciate everything.
Thank you.
So, laid out a couple of things there, and it is true. Everybody was neglecting their military. For how long? Neglect, complete neglect. Canada was one of the worst offenders of neglect to them. I mean, Canada's military is probably in the worst shape of all NATO countries. I mean, if you look at it, like diesel subs that we bought in a UK garage sale from a number of years ago, aircraft that are 40 years old, half can't even get off the ground. The last 2 times there was incursions into Canadian airspace, it was American jets that defended Canada. We have a Coast Guard that won't even take weapons. They tried to put the 300 federal workers into the reserve, and they said, heck no, we won't go. They tried to give weapons to the Coast Guard, and they said, not interested. They gave sleeping bags that weren't even good as the ones you could get at Canadian Tire. It's been neglected. The Auditor General went and looked at 14 properties of the Canadian military where they house our soldiers. Half of them don't have safe drinking water, don't have flushing toilets, and have walls that are deteriorating. That's the state of our military. And they said they were going to do all this stuff, and that they were going to up the spending to 2%, and they didn't do that. And they kind of just quietly just let that go. They are not doing anything. It's almost been a year of the Carney liberals, and it's the same stuff, and it's the same rhetoric, it's the same ideology. So show me the beef. Show me what's getting done, because there's not a lot getting done. I expected a lot more from that speech yesterday, and what we got out of that speech was, like you said, Justin Trudeau 2.0.
Yeah, but I would. I'm going to have to push back here. I'm going to have to go David Cochrane mode and say recruitment was up 13% in November. Did you not get the breaking news alert on that?
So that was like five guys from
13%.
5 from 2. 5 guys from 2.
Exactly.
That's what I mean. You can pick
13%.
stats. Like 13%. That means like that was mean another 10 people joined because it was so bad. Like I can play stats. I'm an accountant. I can play stats all day long. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So David Cochrane. You know what? Just put apologist on your right underneath where you are, and then you'll be doing just fine. And also, don't forget that the bucket of sausage rolls right beneath your desk that gets replenished every 30 seconds. There you go, David Cochrane. But
Rollo's good at that now, isn't he? Getting the sausage rolls up.
These are the good sausage rolls. These came from Dawson Creek. These are the best sausage rolls ever. And
yeah, they do look very good.
This is what you can expect. This is from GB News. They put this out. This is a Chloe. And let's listen to Chloe for a second, because I think it's important. This is what they do. This is what they did in Canada, too. Remember, they offered the $1 million bounty for the Canadian MP. Let's listen to here.
Welcome to the studio. Thank you so much. Before we get on to the issue of the Chinese super agency, can you just tell us briefly what happened to you? You were born in Hong Kong. You're now living in Britain. What's happened in that time?
So I was born in Hong Kong, and I participated in the 2019 pro-democracy protest. I left Hong Kong in August 2020 because I felt unsafe under the Hong Kong national security law. And I moved to the UK, and I do more advocacy because a lot of my Hong Kong friends are still in prison. And in December 2024, the Hong Kong authorities placed a $1 million Hong Kong bounty on my head because of the things I did in the UK.
What does that mean, a $1 million bounty? What does that mean?
That's good enough. So this happened actually in Canada, and this is why one of Carney's candidates for MP had to bow out, because the RCMP, because he actually publicly said that to go and kidnap this person, take him to the Hong Kong or to the embassy, and then they would get their $1 million bounty.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think it was in Manchester in England. You can watch the video. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was Manchester. Where they brought someone, they brought someone inside, like a protester. They brought them inside of their little, the embassy grounds or whatever, and gave him a good kicking, gave him a beating. So, and that's like happening on British soil, where they just do it. So yeah, I mean, this was quite a complex story. So it was 2022. It was outside the Chinese embassy in Manchester, and they. Just have a look at that video and read that story. The Chinese have no scruples whatsoever. And we should probably say, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but the Chinese Communist Party, the elite in China, doesn't consider the people like the likes of that woman there. If she has a British passport, which I assume she probably has, they don't recognize that. Even if you're like second or third generation Chinese in a country like Canada, the Chinese Communist Party doesn't recognize you as Canadian. They think that you're still Chinese, and they reserve the right. They claim the right to do to you as they would to a citizen of the People's Republic of China. That is, read all about it. Go out and go into the world and read about it. So that's the context of a lot of this. You have to, when you're talking about things like election interference, from the Chinese perspective, they're thinking our citizens are involved in our people are involved in Canadian politics. We should obviously go over there and make sure that they behave correctly.
Keep this one in the back of your mind here, because we're going to come back to it. But keep that one in the back of your mind, because we're going to come back to it. But here's Nigel Farage, who has this to say about Mark Carney. Because you're going to remember, Mark Carney ran the Bank of England there, and he has not such a storied history there in England.
I will disagree with things Trump says, of course, from time to time.
With this president, it seems that doing what you've just said, having a good relationship without being beholden,
yeah.
I think we even learnt from Mark Carney this week, or at least his argument was, means actually working with a lot of other countries. And European countries have deduced from this week and from the change in the position on Greenland that ganging together was the only way to be not beholden to Donald Trump. You don't want to do that.
Good old Mark Carney, isn't he marvellous?
But you don't think you should be working with other European countries?
Chap that gets everything
not
wrong.
Be beholden to the
gets
US?
Everything wrong and keeps being promoted. It's remarkable. Look, of course, we understand collective strength through NATO.
That's all. That's good enough. That's all we really wanted there was.
Another loyal viewer of the Really Big Show, because that's exactly what we were saying when he was sat down there with Gideon Rachman after he'd had his standing ovation by people at the World Economic Forum who've been wrong on everything. Everybody claps. Gideon Rachman, wrong about everything. Sits down with Mark Carney, wrong about everything. And they diagnose the problems of the world and say, now we're going to fix it. We're going to fix all of these mistakes. Mistakes, that they made, that they're responsible for, but apparently they forget. I mean, Mark Carney, if you just want to know one thing about Mark Carney, his time as a central banker, he violated all of the institutional norms of the Bank of England. The world's oldest central bank goes back to the 17th century. He violated every rule, written and unwritten, when he came out and he took a political side in the Brexit debate. And he forecast doom for the British. He said, if you leave the European Union, if Britain leaves the European Union, the economy is just doomed, basically. There's nothing good can come out of that. And yet, just have a look yourself. Go on Bloomberg or whatever, or just try and get the data yourself and look at it. Look at British growth since Brexit and compare it to the European Union's average growth. He could not have been more wrong. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You can talk about QE and things like that. He's been one of the puppet masters of this system that we've lived under for the last 3 decades or so, which has left so many people so unhappy and so miserable and has led us to this troublesome pass. And that's the context of Farage's comment, I think.
Someone said we're cool. Somebody said we're the cool kids.
Not as cool as Emmanuel Macron. Get the aviators on.
He said we twist the facts. He must be watching too much CBC because they never twist any facts, right? CBC. Come on, man.
Is this the well? And somebody just said something. I think it might be the same guy that you're talking about.
Yeah,
trying to say that we're trying to impress the Kelowna elite. Oh yeah, it is the same guy. I wonder what this channel will be like if they stop trying to be liked by Kelowna's elite. What's the Kelowna elite? Is that Tom Dias? What are you talking about?
Well, speaking of that, I am interviewing Tom Dias and a couple of the other counselors later today. So if you want to tune in,
Kelowna elite.
Anyway,
I mean, what seriously? What's the Kelowna elite? Maybe it's like hockey. Some of the retired hockey players. I guess that's what it is.
And then here's Andrew Scheer saying that because Mark Carney made some claims in his speech. He's been fact checked, so we just put this out here because there was a fact check there. He got that wrong, so we're just going to move on from that because we don't want to upset the person here. Stick around, commonly censored, because we have some facts for you later here, so you can dispute.
That was amazing, that, by the way. We should emphasize that, how wrong he got that. Canada plus the Nordics are 20% of GDP. That wasn't just like a blip. That wasn't just like a typo kind of thing, verbal typo. Because he went, isn't that amazing? Like, isn't that amazing to think about? Like, he really meant that. And it is so, so wrong. It's kind of like awesomely wrong. And again, this is the guy who's the master of economics, the master of finance, doesn't even know that the most basic things about global economics. And I'm telling you, like, the most basic things. The same guy that said Canada's produces is one of the most important producers in the world of semiconductors as well. Just like, Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I feel like he is trolling, because there are times where he says things, and I just think there is just no way that you could be that wrong. There's no way. Like I'm not convinced that he's that ignorant.
Sorry, I was just answering a question there. Let's move on to some of our other news. Doug Ford really getting angry here now. He's talking about EVs here. Let's listen to Doug Ford.
People might buy them, and I discourage anyone from buying a Chinese vehicle. But if they decide to do that, at what cost? Is it at the cost to your neighbor down the street that's working in the auto sector, that he's not going to have or she's not going to have a job? You got to look at more of a Team Canada approach. And wherever they're working, if they went and outsourced their jobs, they wouldn't be too happy. So, folks, this is time to band together, Team Canada. That's what we need to focus on. Take care of each other. Well, we're being attacked on two fronts. We're being attacked by China. We're being attacked by Trump. This is all the more reason we have to diversify our trade to countries that we're doing great work with. I'll give you an example. Volkswagen in Germany. Hopefully Germany can come or Volkswagen or a German car can come and manufacture here. They built the fourth largest building in the world, 16 million square feet in St. Thomas. Or Korea, where Hyundai and Kia are selling 220,000 vehicles into Canada. Come and invest. We'll support you. That's what we need to do. Start diversifying and stop relying on their American friends so much.
Well, we got a rebuttal from Liberal MP here on guardrails, and because you've got to remember, Mark Carney said it's just going to be 49,000 EVs into Canada for the first year. They're going to set a cap on it, and there's been some pushback and saying, Doug Ford has said it that's just going to get, it's like the camel getting his head in the tent. They're going to push more. But here's a little bit of the tent door opening. This is right from the mouth of the Liberal MP. Let's listen to what he has to say.
I listened to Minister Champagne just a moment ago talk about eyes wide open. I heard the Prime Minister on multiple occasions say that there will be guardrails to this relationship as we try to amplify trade with China. I never heard anyone specify what they are. Minister, what are the guardrails?
Well, if you look at China, our second largest trading partner, it's very important that we continue to engage with China. Very successful trip. We've been working with them, to negotiate agriculture access. In fact, over $7 billion of agriculture access for canola, for seafood, for beef. In fact, our very first shipment of beef is already out there now. Canola's out there as well. And so it's very important that we continue to open up access for our producers, for our workers, but also about EVs. That's very important as well, especially being an MP in Ontario. Speaking to workers, Stellantis is in my riding, 3,000 people laid off. Speaking to those workers, they ask me, they just say, we want to build cars. We don't care who we build them for. We just want to build cars. And so this is very important in terms of attracting joint venture opportunities between Chinese and Canadian companies to help build those cars in Canada.
And I appreciate, Minister, the economic case, right, as you lay it out for more trade with China. But my question with respect was about the guardrails that your government is planning to put in place. I know our audience and you will be familiar with the fact that in April, the Prime Minister, in response to a question in the election debate about what is the greatest security threat facing Canada, his answer was China. So the question around guardrails pertains to that. Like, what guardrails is your government going to put in place to help navigate this relationship so that we do not suffer as a result of, more trade with China?
So part of the agreements that we signed on the ground in China was law enforcement collaboration, cooperation with each other to keep our communities safe. And so I think that's very important for those watching so they understand, what we're doing there. We're making sure there's partnerships on energy, on agriculture, on consumer goods. But also, of course, public safety and law enforcement is very, very important. We want to make sure that our citizens' safety is never compromised. And so, going in with eyes wide open, as you said, it's very important to our government. But, as the Prime Minister said in Davos, we need to see the world for what it is, not what we wish it to be. And so we need to approach it very pragmatically and constructively, and that's exactly what our government is doing.
Don't have an answer, basically, isn't it? Like, sorry. I didn't do my homework, teacher.
again, sharing policing and stuff like that, that should raise concerns for the young lady that we had just a couple minutes ago. Do you know what I mean? Policing. Remember, they had police stations actually operating in Canada. I don't think they got permits for those. We're okay with that? That's good. We're going to share policing.
Or maybe they, or even worse, maybe they did get informally get a kind of nod, which would be quite tragic, wouldn't it?
And if you if you didn't have enough, you put this one in here, so I'll let you tee this one up. Justin Trudeau here.
Justin Trudeau talking about something called the female quotient, which is like on the sidelines of Davos. And looking, I will say this for Trudeau, and I've said it many times, but you've got to say, even if you dislike someone, not saying I necessarily dislike Trudeau, but you've got to say good things about him as well. He does know how to dress, doesn't he? He dresses well and he gets his hair looking immaculate, which I suppose is more important than anything, really, isn't it, if you want to lead a country?
Got a clip here from Justin here. He was.
Yeah. I wonder why. He's coming out with like last decade's talking points. He's expired. He's way past his sell-by day, isn't he?
It was like when I was in high level, he was basically a lounge singer. He's now relegated to a lounge singer, the guy that has the one guitar, the keyboard. Not that I want to disparage lounge singers, but that's where he's at right now. He's a lounge singer. He's got all this stuff going on. That's Justin Trudeau from the main stage to just a disappointment for Canada. How's that?
And there's so much about that man that is so fascinating. Like, I don't know if people realize the extent to which he is, he's really quite an extremist. That language at the end there, where he's like saying foment this subversive attitude. Like he sounds like Antonio Gramsci or something. He sounds like a bloody communist. He sounds like a revolutionary, which I guess is kind of what he is. He has that revolutionary instinct, even though it's not like, he's not running around with a rifle and a red flag and stuff like that. But institutionally, anyway, he's trying to do things in a completely new way and clean away and wipe away the past and replace it with something new, which is basically the definition of revolutionary. But I would also say, a lot of people would defend that and say, oh, but we do need more women or something like that. Well, I mean, this idea, I have to say straight away, where he just said, women are like, aren't we supposed to not talk like that? Aren't we supposed to not generalize what women are like? But there he is doing that. Like, I thought that was a sin in his kind of worldview, where he's like, oh, women just say they're not confident enough to take the job. Strange thing to say. But then he says, oh my God, you have 2 PhDs. Right. I mean, I think we need fewer people with PhDs in, whatever it is, critical theory or some nonsense like that. Like, we need a lot less of those people in Canadian politics, because we can see the damage that they've done just in the last 10 years. I mean, statistically, we can literally look at the graphs and see what happened when they were given power. It's not necessarily a good thing.
Oh, yeah, we pull up.
The last thing I'll say about this, just think about, there are many, many ways in which you can divide Canadian society, right? He's chosen to divide Canadian society by male and female, by genitalia, like one of the most basic ways to divide a population. But there are lots of ways to do it. You could, for example, say, what about people that don't have degrees in Canada? That sort of forgotten 50% or so. It's pretty, they're pretty much excluded from governance. I'm sure, Mr. Trudeau, that there are many, many, many gems in that demographic, but he's got nothing to say about them. What about people from the West and East? That's one of the easiest ways to divide Canada. What about Westerners? Why didn't he go on this mission, this sort of man or woman hunt for people from the West to bring them into government? And there are so many other ways that you could do it, but he does it that way. You have to call bullshit on that, as he said himself.
You outlined it a few days ago. Weakness of leadership. It's Trudeau's decade. We can pull up chart after chart after chart, and we have. If you're a regular on the show, we've shown you the charts. Weakness of leadership. has put Canada at its knees, our economy at its knees, and at the mercy of the Americans right now. No pipeline to the north, to the West Coast or the East Coast. That's our biggest export. That's what put us at our knees. And the climate agenda, the climate grifting, which we're going to show you later how everybody's left it now. All of that other than Mark Carney. Mark Carney, also economic advisor. Remember, Justin Trudeau so famously said, I don't worry about the economy and I don't worry about the budget. And then also, Chrystia Freeland said, in her own words, that Justin Trudeau, Liberals spent the decade wasted on ideology, virtue signaling, and identity politics. She said those words. She said those words. That's his legacy. That's his legacy to Canada. Mm-hmm. And pot. He legalized pot. That's the one thing he did. He legalized pot. And Elton John would say that was the biggest mistake Canada ever made. But that's the one thing that he can claim. I don't know what else he can claim. But Michael Cooper, MP, Conservative MP, has this to say, and this is another question the MPs are not asking. You and I keep saying it. And if we can ask questions, we'd love to do more interviews with the MPs. They won't even answer our emails, the Liberals. And one of the questions that needs to be answered is the countless conflicts of interest that Mark Carney has owning Brookfield shares. And Brookfield took, well, he was the chair. He took the loan from President Xi, the Bank of China, for over $250 million. And here's Michael Cooper explaining the conflicts here. Let's listen to Michael Cooper.
It's becoming increasingly clear that Mark Carney is abusing his power as Prime Minister to benefit Brookfield, and by extension, Mark Carney's personal financial portfolio. Mark Carney has vast conflicts of interest with Brookfield. Carney stands to make tens of millions of dollars in future bonus pay from a multi-billion-dollar Brookfield investment fund he registered in Bermuda while he was chair of Brookfield. He also has Brookfield stock options worth millions of dollars. As the chief operating officer of Brookfield confirmed when he testified before the Ethics Committee, when Brookfield does well, Mark Carney does well. That's why the Ethics Commissioner set up an ethics screen that applies to Brookfield companies. It's also why the Ethics Commissioner specifically told Carney not to meet with Brookfield. But what has Mark Carney done? Literally the day after the federal election, Carney met with the CEO of a Brookfield-owned gas company. Then in May, Carney met the CEO of Brookfield Infrastructure, Sam Pollock, in Washington, D.C., and in October, Carney secretly met with the chief operating officer of Brookfield in the Prime Minister's office. And those are just the meetings that we know about. There could be others because Carney has been anything but transparent about who he has met with and who he has spoken to. It's not only that top Brookfield executives have direct access to Carney. Brookfield happens to be doing very well, courtesy of Mark Carney's government. In the recent federal budget, Carney's government handed the European Space Agency $500 million. Why hand taxpayers' money to a foreign space agency? Perhaps because Brookfield has a 50% ownership of the European Space Agency's headquarters in England, and upgrading their facilities would also upgrade Brookfield's stock price. And then there's the recent Memorandum of Understanding with Alberta to perhaps someday possibly consider building a pipeline. But in the meantime, it requires a multi-billion-dollar investment in carbon capture and storage by Pathways Alliance. The leading carbon capture company connected with Pathways Alliance is Entropy. Entropy is owned by none other than Brookfield. And even more significant is the fact that the Brookfield fund that invested in Entropy is the same fund that Mark Carney set up and that his future bonus pay is tied to. What a coincidence. Canadians deserve the assurance that the Prime Minister is not making decisions that benefit his personal financial interests. But that's exactly what is happening under Mark Carney. Billions and billions of dollars are going to Brookfield, and Mark Carney is benefiting because, again, when Brookfield does well, Mark Carney does well. It's wrong, it's unethical, and it needs to stop.
I mean, you would think an MP puts that out there, and we've been saying, how long have we been saying the exact same thing? We actually do a really good explainer video on CCUS. I think we did it months ago. You and I did the first thing when Carbon Capture USA came to Canada. Mm-hmm. That was months and months ago. We put it out there. We explained this stuff, and then like the Conservatives are finally picking it up. We talked about this a long time ago. Why wouldn't the media that gets access to the Liberals be asking these questions? Why wouldn't they be asking? Again, we would ask the questions, and somebody said that, we don't get the interviews. Well, yeah, because they refuse to be interviewed. So that's how it works. You just refuse to be interviewed, and then you don't have to deal with anything. This should be the #1 question on every reporter's mind. Remember, go back to the thing, we played the clip where they were in the bakery there for 3 minutes there. CBC cut away to watch Mark Carney pick out sausage rolls. Not one reporter in that room could think of a question to ask as Mark Carney spent 3 minutes deliberating over sausage rolls, which were later given to the reporter. That's our whole sausage roll thing here on the Really Big Show. They basically sold all their ethics, principles, and their journalistic integrity for sausage rolls. That's it. Because there's so many questions that should be asked. Nothing. I can tell you right now, Ian and I were in that room, we wouldn't be staring at the sausage roll. We've been asking the questions. I can tell you right now, Ezra Levant, if he was would Ezra Levant just stare at the sausage rolls, or would he ask a question?
He might have had a look at them, but yeah, I'm sure he would have also asked the question, which is the important thing.
The sausage rolls, how Canada sold out its democracy for sausage rolls. Literally.
But yeah, look, I mean, obviously this chap here, Michael Cooper, is a partisan who represents the Conservative Party. He wants to replace the Liberal Party with his party so that he has so that he's in power. You can impugn his motives, and it's pretty fair to do so. But what he said, summarized, or at least I think the most important thing that he said that must be engaged with by everyone, and that includes Liberal voters, and that includes the CBC and all the rest of it, which is the same thing. When Brookfield succeeds, Mark Carney gets richer. That's just a truism. It's just the truth. It's a very plainly stated truth. And it was stated by the CEO, I believe it was, or some high-ranking executive of Brookfield. He said that at a parliamentary committee. I mean, it was already obvious, and we already knew that, but that's it confirmed by the guy in charge. That is a concern.
Yeah.
You have to have a line on that. You have to have a take on that. You can't just ignore it, pretend it's nothing. It is important that, if you're serious about this democracy lark that we're playing along with, you have to have an opinion on that, because it's a pretty big deal. We're talking a huge sum of money, a gigantic company. And whenever he does something that improves their stock price, he gets richer. And he knows that, despite the blind trust. He knows that. Of course he knows that.
And here's a couple of big things on that. Brookfield has billions of dollars in real estate assets in China. That's why they took the loan in China, and took the loan from the Bank of China because it couldn't get financing other places. Why did he take a loan from the Bank of China? Like the worst possible place to take a loan. That's like taking it from Uncle Louis. So they have tons of real estate in a failing real estate market in China, So they have lots of exposure to failing real estate in China. That's obvious. They also have, Brookfield is the biggest investor in climate agenda. The biggest investor, including CCUS, which was just outlined there, including CCUS. You can go watch our video on the explainer on CCUS. The biggest investor in CCUS that is basically dead everywhere. Carbon Capture USA said it on their website. They can't make this technology work anywhere but Canada because of the 75 cents on the dollar tax credits. Listen to that, 75 cents on the dollar tax. Imagine your business could get that. And if they can't get CCUS to work in Canada, that's some billions of dollars of write-offs for Brookfield. So they got huge exposure in China, that is failing real estate in China, and they also have huge exposure to climate. Financially, Mark Carney wants to financialize everything, open up CPP so they can invest in carbon credits. He said all these things. And if it fails, if nobody wants to buy carbon credits, it's dead. That's billions of dollars they'll have to write off. British Petroleum, we did the story a couple of weeks ago where it says British Petroleum has walked away from their whole climate agenda and is writing off billions of dollars. So it's odd that Mark Carney goes to China and then Qatar, again, where Brookfield has massive investments. It just seems odd, right? And it's questions that beg to be asked. That's the thing. They beg to be asked. And Mark Carney is it doesn't even let the media ask questions. Even the media that's corrupted and crippled don't even really get to sit down and ask questions. But we got lots to get through, so we're going to kind of like fly through some of this other stuff here. But that's key. Go back and replay that. That is very important. We said this for a while now, way back to December. It's bonus time in Ottawa. We don't get the numbers for a year. You know what I mean? Because we're getting 2024 numbers now. We had last time we were sharing the 2023 numbers because the government is not very keen on sharing the information. But here you go. In 2024, the average bonus for federal execs was 18 grand. So meanwhile, Canadians are record lineups at food banks. The federal executives are raking in the dough. The average is $18,000. That's according to figures in the year-end briefing note. They're expecting 2025 bonuses soon, right? Executive bonus in 2024 cost $142 million, a 12.3% increase from the previous year. Why not? Canadian economy is doing great. Why not get an increase at 12 point? Do you know what I mean? Everybody must be doing well. I don't know. Most Canadians, half of Canadians, according to a poll, can't make their monthly. They're $200 away from meeting their monthly obligations. But hey, bonus time, bonus time, bonus time, bonus time, right? And in 2024, the average performance pay per executive was increased from $16,498 to $17,869, said the note. There you go. And we said this story a while back, 90 to 100% of they get a bonus. Like nobody gets turned down. Like we talked about that one CRA employee that was making, what was it, $273,000 a year? Was it 170 or 270?
Yeah.
And then she wasn't coming to work. So they didn't give her bonus. She complained, got her bonus. And this is from Holly Dona Blacklocks. And they don't like Holly Dona Blacklocks either because she gets all the FOIs. I mean, they try to block all these FOIs. And this is another one.
Isn't it just amazing, though? Just think about it for a second. Like, is there anyone in this country, other than these people that get these bonuses, that would say that things have been getting better? That federal departments are running more efficiently. They're really smashing those targets. Everything's getting better in Canada. I don't really think that there's any connection to performance, is there?
Go on CBC, see if you can find this story. Go on CBC, see if you can find this story. And it's odd when we get these people that defend the Liberals on here. They just want to attack us, say that we're getting money from Russia, say that we're just Pierre Poilievre things. They don't want any criticism. Isn't that odd, too, that there's actually like sycophants that go around on the internet and find people like us that are actually trying to tell the truth? And then they attack us like we're just like, it's just odd, isn't it? Do you not find it odd? I find it very, very odd.
Got to attack someone, I guess.
Here's a Bloc Québécois MP sponsoring common petition bill to cancel all subsidies for halal and kosher meat processing in Canada. Because they gave out like piles of cash for this. Like they gave out, the Department of Agriculture on January 9th approved a $2.3 million subsidy to Atlantic Beef Products and Albany PEI processor for halal certified products. If you want meat cut a certain way, just pay for it. Why should the taxpayer pay for it? Do you know what I mean? If you want
halal as well. Halal is quite a controversial way to kill an animal. And I'm not going to go into it, but you can just Google it and have a read about it. I mean, it's not something I imagine that the, Greenpeace or whoever the hell, PETA, whatever, would be very happy about. But obviously they don't say very much about it at those organizations because that's sort of left-wing shibboleth, isn't it? You're not supposed to criticize Islam in any way.
Funding was approved under a 2-year, $25 million program to help the Canadian beef and veal sector mitigate the challenges inherent in slaughter in accordance with a Judaic and Islamic law. Again, if you want your meat a certain way, pay for it. Why should the Canadian taxpayer fund this? Why should the Canadian taxpayer fund this? Fund it yourself, right? If you have a special need, fund it yourself.
I mean, it's basic, isn't it? It's a secularism thing, really, isn't it? And that's what the Québécois, they often bang that drum, the secularism drum.
But here you go. The Department of Transport last year disciplined 58 employees. This is what's her name's department? Chrystia Friedland. She leaves a mess wherever she goes, even though she was in there very little. 58 employees for workplace misconduct violations covered a wide range of wrongdoing from rudeness to theft. This is not a report we take lightly, and that's what they said in their annual report. It speaks to difficult issues that affect real people and underscores obligation as leaders to confront them with clarity. 58 cases included breaches of the department's value and ethics code. Examples can include undue use and influence, unauthorized access to resources, misrepresenting and providing false information, and not disclosing a conflict of interest. Who's not disclosing a conflict of interest? Let me think. Anybody? 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 Just anybody. Theft was also identified. One of the more serious cases was documented. There are 2 cases of fraud and financial misconduct during the reporting period. In one case, theft was identified. The respondent was suspended and required to complete mandatory training. Okay. If you get caught stealing at other places of work, that's it. It's over. Goodbye.
Yeah, like, I mean, quite brutally as well at times. Spoke to somebody that worked in a grocery store, and he was saying a woman was taking food. A woman that worked there was taking food, and it was because she was poor. You know, she was trying to stay alive. She's trying to keep her kids fed, and was taking money from the store, taking food, from the store. And even though it broke all their hearts to do it, obviously they fired her. They got rid of her. But and yet here we are, different rules for the people that matter the most in our society.
See if you can draw a correlation on this one. The Parliament should compel the Canadian Revenue Agency to annually report offshore tax evaders, including successful prosecutions. That says a Labour Commission to the Commons Finance Committee. The Commons 7 years ago defeated a similar private bill. Why? Why? The Canadian Revenue Agency should improve its accountability by publishing a detailed annual report on the amounts it has recouped, the audits it's conducted, and the prosecution it launched, and major cases it solved. Let's just think. Who's dodged $6.5 billion worth of taxes here in Canada because of a loophole? Anybody? Anybody? And who said
Isn't that very respectable chap?
And who said that they would close that loophole? It's been a year. Is it closed? Have we recovered any of those taxes? Just wondering. And then they're starting to do some job cuts there, but again, they're going to drag this out into the millennia. Federal job cuts will total about 40,000 by 2029, according to Treasury Board briefing notes. And then they declined to specify actual numbers of layoffs since it impacts the public service employees, and not only them. They're already starting to protest. The board in December 10th briefing note said that it was goal to reduce federal public service by approximately 40,000 positions by March of 2029. A lot of that will be through attrition. The federal payroll, anyone want to guess how many people work for the federal government? 367,772, and then that thing has ballooned since Justin Trudeau took office. Ballooned. How are you doing?
Yeah.
How are you doing? Right? You know, bonuses and wages and just, you know, you work 3 days a week in the office, and if you get told you have to come in to work more, you get excited. Here's a CBC.
That's 6 times the size of the military, isn't it? Roughly. Put it that way.
Well, that's what Carney tried to do. They tried to increase the military by putting them all in as reserve. They said, "Hell no, we won't go." CBC,
which I thought that was so fascinating. That was such an indictment of this system, that the people that benefit the most from this system refused to fight for it. You know, historically, here I go with my history lecture. But historically, the people who benefit the most from a society, like landowners and slave owners in the Roman Republic, for example, traditionally, they're the ones that are the most eager to fight, because obviously the whole thing is set up for them. It's bloody great. Like, obviously I'm going to fight for this because it's great and I like it. And then we had a similar sort of example here in Canada, where it's like the people that benefit, one might argue, the most from this system were asked to fight for it and just said, "What? Absolutely not, sir."
Well, it's, my 2 cents said that how many of these 300K workers still work from home? Well, to be more accurate, the average salary is $136,000 for the federal government. So that's the average. But a lot of the people running departments are in the 2, 3, 4 plus range. Some in the highest in the 6 plus range. Dr. Noma Meaner, who looks out a window, I think it's 273,000, isn't it? Or was it? Or 393? I can't remember. You got to go back and watch our old videos. But here's the second video I've seen CBC do this now. where anybody that helps ICE or anything like that, or some of the immigration stuff, they dox the company. They're good at doxing. They did it during the Freedom Convoy, but here's CBC going hard at work again, doxing a company here. Listen in on the CBC doing the work to enrage the public.
About some new reporting from our colleagues at Radio-Canada. They have connected a Quebec security firm with the infamous Alligator Alcatraz Detention Center in Florida. It turns out the company is cashing in hugely on the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Linda Ward has some of the details for us. Linda, walk us through what's Radio-Canada reporting.
So we're talking about Guardrails. This is a Quebec-based security firm. It's Radio-Canada is reporting that it is involved heavily in American ICE operations. Now, Guardrails has signed several contracts, agreements with the state of Florida in recent...
Like, that's good. What does that have to do with the CBC? Like, if you went to Davos and listened, almost every leader said they're going to close their borders. Trump has closed their borders and are kicking out people that are illegal in that country. What's the deal with the CBC? Like, what are they doing? They've done this twice now. Like, who do they work for? Do they work for the Democratic Party, or who are they working for? Like, why are they doxing a Canadian company that's trying to make money? We're literally going to
especially when you think they've got very limited amount of space.
Well, we're literally going to work with the Chinese. If you want to pull up their rights violations and they executed Canadians. Where's that story, CBC? Where's that story right now? Right now, CBC, where's that story? You're doxing a Quebec company because it's selling things for stuff that's actually illegal in the United States. And then you're just ignoring what's going on with China and the cozying up to China. Absolutely atrocious. Again, CBC continues to embarrass itself. It knows no bounds on how low it can go. Absolutely. And it sounds like authority. And what is the report from Radio-Canada? How bad is it there?
But you've proved my point and done it better than I was going to do, actually, by talking about China and talking about all the kinds of dreadful things that Canadians experience in other countries around the world. Because what I was going to say was they have a limited amount of space, so they really have to be ruthless when they decide to spotlight a story. And just think about that, how ruthless they've been, and that's what made the grade. That's what they selected. And you might ask the question, why? How could this possibly be? My answer would be because these people look up to CNN and the American left, the American Democratic infosphere. That's what they look up to. That's what they aspire to be like. So they've been imbibing this relentlessly from CNN and the rest of them. And now they want to do their own little bit on CBC.
And let's a reminder of what the CBC and the mainstream and the crippled media did during the Freedom Convoy. Here is Chrystia Freeland, a former journalist. Listen to this. You make the CBC proud here, Chrystia. Go ahead.
Repeat what I said on Monday. If your truck is being used in these protests, your corporate accounts will be frozen. The insurance on your vehicle will be suspended. The consequences are real, and they will bite. It is time for you to go home. And let me also be clear that we will have zero tolerance for the establishment of new blockades or occupations. We now have the tools to follow the money. We can see what is happening and what is being planned in real time.
That's good. That's enough from her.
If you just woke up from a coma and you watched that, you'd say, what the hell? Was there like an ISIS occupation in Canada or something? Like, was there literally like an Islamic State style terror, country, like a mini little country crafted out of Canadian territory, and we had to figure out a way to defeat them? Like, is that what was happening there? And you'd say, no, you got it wrong. It was some dudes in trucks that were worried that they were going to lose their jobs, so they drove to Ottawa to protest, and that's what she did.
How about this, CBC? The story that we just did, you put that ahead of this. There's been 2 court decisions now. The Court of Appeal has rendered a decision that said what you just did there was illegal, that infringed on the rights of the Canadian citizens, that you infringed on their constitutional rights, that you did that, the Charter of Rights, I should say. You infringed on that. It was an illegal use of the Emergencies Act. You did that. How many outlets have done the story so far? Has the government state broadcaster done it yet? No. But they did do the Quebec, Radio Canada. What have we got going on with immigration? The Canadian government broke the law and trampled on Canadians' rights. Literally trampled on them with horses. Trampled on Canadians' rights. Not one story from CBC, but instead, like you said, they have just very little room to do stories because in their time, there were the two of them got together and they decided to highlight the wrongdoings, or not even wrongdoings, what the Americans are doing. And they don't do the story on Chrystia Freeland, Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney, because Mark Carney advised them to do this as well, to freeze their bank accounts. Nothing. Radio silence. Radio Canada. Radio silence.
Yeah, and just to go back to our dear precious Justin Trudeau, who stood next to Chrystia Freeland there, he was talking about dividing the population between male and female, and how female, doesn't get a fair go of it, and all the rest of it. What about the class? What about the class divide? Should we talk about that? That's like secret, prohibited speech, isn't it, to talk about class in Canada? But this was in many ways a kind of class revolt. And she represented the ruling class, ruthlessly putting the boot on the throat of the working class. Are we going to talk about that? Anybody interested? What about the NDP? Should we get Charlie Angus on? I'm sure Charlie Angus would agree, wouldn't he? This warrior of the working man. Just appalling. Like, just ruthless bullying and persecution of the weak by the strong.
Just want to
and
say,
then it's celebrated.
CBC props up the Liberals and does not hold them accountable. CBC is what shields them. CBC is what needs to be defunded. CBC and all government funding must stop, must stop. It props them up and shields them from accountability. Ezra Levant from Rebel News got the story of the year so far, and mainstream media still silent on it, right?
But she also, as well, just think about the way that she kind of, how she dealt with that, being jumped by Ezra Levant there. There was a bit of self-pity there, wasn't there? And certainly from Jolie as well. There was a bit of like, I'm a woman and you're like physically intimidating me, or like I'm just a civil servant. I'm just a public servant on a walk in this street in Switzerland. And it's kind of like, this is who you are. This is what you did when you were wielding the whip. This is the kind of compassion that you showed, and quite easily, she just slimes her way into this role as like victim, trying to walk away from the big scary Ezra Levant. Terrible. I could go on all day, but
yeah. Well, we're going to try and get through a lot of it.
It's very, very bad behavior, isn't it? It's not.
I guarantee you we got some really good stuff coming up here, and you got to stick. We're going to try and go faster here. We're going to play all these clips because there's a lot of really good stuff yet, because it really sets up what the last decade was. And this is a question that was asked at Davos as well. Why do you think the people are so scared in the UK when it comes to freedom of speech? And this is the answer. They don't like being criticized. And that's the same thing that goes for the Liberal government. They don't like being criticized. That's why the Liberal government with Bill C-10, the Online News Act, has crippled media. It's crippled media. It took away our platforms, took away our audience, took away our revenue streams, and then basically then upped the funding for the CBC and then selectively funded some outlets. It silences the media. They deny access, and then they use CBC as their beard. It's like, oh, look, CBC, the state broadcaster, the most powerful institution here, though. Carney said it, right? It is the most important institution in Canada. It is the most important institution for the Liberals because it protects them for sure. And then we got a little bit more just to show you some of this. I'm not going to play the clips, but this is the headline that CBC ran. ICE arrest 5-year-old in Minneapolis sparked fresh outcry, and that's how it unfolded. So that's the headline. Turns out, though, and CBC later corrects it, that the guy the father that was with this child fled. So they're not going to leave the child there. You know what I mean? They're not going to just like, oh well, the dad fled, and there's this kid standing. Time to go. So they took the child. Do you know what I mean? What should they do? CBC corrects the story later, though, and J.D. Vance explained what happened, because it sounds horrible, though, if you read this headline, that ICE arrests a 5-year-old, right? It sounds horrible on the surface, but then if you actually look into it, but CBC didn't correct the headline, they just put a note in their story, right? Because the headline has all the value, right? The headline has all the value.
Same thing they did when Rosemary Barton uttered a really provocative falsehood about the Kamloops residential school saga, as I'm sure our loyal viewers will remember when we talked about that.
So this is what you get when you get activist media, and then you get activists that come on and attack us because we try to share more of the truth and more of the other side of it. They're just saying we're the activists. Listen to this. This is a tennis player. They're asking the reporter, we're going to play a little clip of this because it's short here. Let's play a little clip of this. And he asks her, actually, I'm not going to play it, well, because we're going to run out of time. He asks her, you know, like, is she still proud to represent America? And she's like, sure I am. And he's like, no. I mean, in light of everything that's going on in the United States. She's like, what are you talking about, right? And then moves on. And then here's another reporter asking Gene Simmons of KISS, my favorite band, you know, what he thinks about Trump's performance. He's like, what do you care? Like, what does it got to do with anything? And he pushes back. What does that have to do with anything? Like, why are you asking me? He basically says in this clip, my strength is I can lick the floor with my tongue. What are you asking me about my political leanings? They're just activists.
Dresses up as a gremlin and sings glamour rock or whatever you call it.
Best songs going. And this one is a shocker. Here you go. Yeah. Here's a shocker. Quebec pushes back against emission targets over fears of economic damage. What? Quebec pushes back? You mean the same Quebec that is basically won't allow us to have a pipeline? That Quebec?
It's just amazing. Yeah,
imagine that. Eh?
But if Quebec's anything, they're self-interested, aren't they? And that doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing, you know. Like, I think a lot of people take some inspiration from the Quebecois, the way that they're interested in their own, you know, their own benefits. They're interested in their own province and their own people. But yeah, to the extent that they will even drop this absolute essential sort of like keystone of Quebec politics for however many years, decades, they'll just drop it if it's not in their interests anymore.
Shelley, it's gone way past Rosemary and David Cochrane. It needs to be defunded. They can survive on their own. Or if people want to donate to them, they can donate to them, do whatever they want to do. But they have lost their way, and they do not represent the voice of Canada. And then this is
and I think it wouldn't be the end of the world. I think that they could actually survive like that. The way that NPR in America did well for a very long time. Or the New York Times even. I mean, obviously it's never going to be as big as the New York Times, but New York Times has a lot of loyal readers. I'm sure it could happen for the CBC. It might not be quite as almighty.
I'm not saying break them down. I'm just saying stop funding them so that they actually figure out a way. And then we played this clip before.
And like the New York Times, they might be forced then to occasionally be serious.
And I'm not going to play this because we played this before, and it's just the energy minister in the United States saying oil and gas the usage has gone up, and it represents the majority of, like in the 70-80% of all energy in the United States. And then Larry Fink, you know, BlackRock, he was the co-chair of Davos this year, and he was also one of the climate change zealots there too, as well with Mark Carney. I mean, the two of them were basically, along with Bill Gates now they're also, let's play this little clip here. You gotta see this clip here. This one's important on this climate extremism that is dying a slow, painful death.
Wind and solar, BlackRock's Larry Fink now admits forcing economies onto intermittent power was a mistake. We need dispatchable power, he says, or risk energy shortages. That admission comes after grids have already been weakened, though, after bills have already surged, and after energy security has long been eroded. Then there's Bill Gates. In 2019, Gates said he had divested from fossil fuels, but his filings show otherwise. In 2024, the Gates Foundation Trust held hundreds of millions of dollars in fossil fuel companies, its largest exposure in years. Today, the companies backed by Gates emit more CO2 annually than Russia, Japan, and Germany.
That's good. Bill Gates has been shown to be quite the... he also shorts Tesla stock. Bill Gates is a man of contradiction, for sure. He's another CEO.
Yeah, but he's a very powerful and influential man, especially on that side of things. And what he said not so long ago, I think has had a huge impact. So, and it's, you know, if you're pro sanity, you know, you have to look upon it as at least neutral, but I think positive.
Here's the CEO of Citadel. I mean, again, we don't have time to play the clip, but the CEO of Citadel said that the Democratic policies and the Liberal policies of the past, you know, decade here in Canada have ruined the economy, and they made no sense, and it drove companies out of the nation. And we're still seeing that in Canada. We're seeing net negative flows out of Canada of capital because of the policies. And then I won't play that clip either, but this one here is important. This is from Christine Lagarde, because Europe has destroyed their economies as well, and she recognizes it now. Listen to what Christina Lagarde has to say here. This is the European Central Bank president. You know, like, you know, she'll say in here that we heard a lot of European bashing at the at Davos because of the climate policies. It's amazing how it's completely shifted. The narrative's completely shifted. You got it?
I think we have heard quite a lot of European bashing in the last few days, but if anything, it has been good. And we should say thank you to the bashers, because I think it has given us a complete realization of the fact that we have to be more focused, we have to work on those plans B that I was talking about, and we have to focus on innovation, improvement of productivity, and the rest of it. Point number one. Point number two, we are dependent on each other. If you look at AI, which has been much talked about in the last few days, AI is capital intensive, energy intensive, data intensive. And it prospers if there is plenty of all that. If we do not work cooperatively, if we do not define the new rules of the game, there will be less data available to process, there will be less capital flowing back and forth and here and there. And that is not conducive to the prosperity of a sector which is currently leading the game and which is very promising in terms of productivity. So we are in a bind, let's face it. And distinguishing the signal from the noise, I think, is critical.
Oops. Oopsie.
Again, just admitting that, like, random YouTube commenters, not our delightful audience here, but I mean, like, from 15 years ago, who were saying things like that. Is like now the glorious, magnificent Christine Lagarde, one of the nobles of Europe, is like, oh yeah, now I'm as smart as somebody from 15 years ago who wrote something on a Joe Rogan podcast comment on YouTube. Like, this is your elite. This is your vanguard. This is the top of the pyramid of your society. Like, dear Lord, no wonder Europe's suffering so much.
I was attacked relentlessly on LinkedIn. I used to write posts on this climate extremism and how it's destroying our economy. You know, I got called all kinds of names, climate denialist and all that stuff. It's just odd. I'll take your apologies. Yeah, you can go back and apologize now.
And it's just AI and data centers. That's what's woken them up out of this stupor. It wasn't when people were like freezing cold in their own homes. That was fine. Or people that literally could not go and get in a car and drive to see their relative, like their mother or something like that, because they didn't have enough money to pay for gas because it was taxed in the extreme and artificially more expensive than it should have been because of restrictions placed on drilling and so on. That was fine. That was okay. Like, that didn't agitate her one bit. That didn't concern her even a little bit. But AI data centers, that's her stock portfolio. She's worried about that.
Justin Trudeau sat down, it wasn't just like his last 6 months in office, and said to people, we know it's tough. You know, you can't make your rent, you can't buy groceries, but there's more important things that need to be done right now, and you have to make the sacrifice for our climate agenda. When will you apologize, Justin? When will you apologize for what you did to Canada? When?
Never. He's proud. He's very proud of what he's done.
Well, it looks like they arrested Ryan Wedding, the notorious fugitive there, former Olympian accused of leading a violent international drug trafficking ring. And that's according to the U.S. media. Wedding, who has been on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list since March 2025 for smuggling dozens of tons of cocaine a year into L.A. What are they going to do with those big parties now? You know, the big L.A. parties without Ryan Wedding. Markets on fire. I don't know if it broke through, but this morning I was looking at silver and it was going to break 100. It was a 99 when I was looking earlier. It was just 99 and just a few pennies away from busting over. Oh, there you go. There you go. There you go. Where's my hand? Who cares? Anyway, silver breaks 100. Silver breaks 100. Silver right now, $100.76. So that's a big, big breakthrough for silver. Huge, massive breakthrough for silver. For the silver bulls out there, you're vindicated. You're right as well. Christina Lagarde is wrong. The world is upside down today. Silver up. Remember the Canadian G7. They don't believe Canada's the only G7 nation without any gold holdings as well. And Tiff Macklin recently said gold has no value, that they'd rather keep it in interest-bearing things. Well, gold today, right now, gold banging on the door, 5,000. Who would have thought you'd seen that day? Gold, 5,000, 49.61, 49 in Canadian dollars, 68.08 in Canadian dollars for the for gold currently at this moment. Absolutely.
For a humble ounce?
For a humble ounce. Again, I can talk gold and silver all day. Bitcoin at 90,000. I do a Bitcoin show too. I did it yesterday. So if you want to see anything on Bitcoin, diversification is key. Canada, not a friend. Although we have some of the best miners, and I've worked with many of them. I actually worked in mine sites and talked to many, interviewed some of the top CEOs in Canada. I interviewed tons of them, you know, that run some of the biggest mining companies here in Canada. And Canada, not the place that they would actually pick to mine, not because of the resources in the ground, but because of the politics and the regulation and all that stuff and how to get something going. 20 years, it's a long time to wait to get something going. That's a long time to put capital at risk. It's a long time. And again, nothing being done that really changes that you know what I mean? Like what's, and again, I follow this market closely because I've been involved in it. Anyway. Elon Musk was at Davos too, a surprise visit. I know he just showed up. Elon Musk looking good lately actually too, right? But he was there. And you know, one thing I've said before is one of the things that the Americans have, and definitely they have the tech people. They have the brain power. There's no denying what they have going on there that nobody else has, and that's the thing the Europeans don't like either. Is that they have the tech companies. They have Elon Musk is probably running the most consequential companies in the world right now, leading in the leading things, and the UK government, which is weird. The UK government and the Canadian government think Elon Musk is the devil and the stupidest man on this planet. Like, isn't that wild? Like, literally
Despite the fact that Elon Musk always talks about his British origins and always talks about having grown up partly in Canada.
Yeah, and they're two nations that hate him. But they have a vision there. They have actually a mission, and the mission is to get to Mars. And Elon says that he wants to die on Mars, but not in a crash. So that's a big vision, right? That's a big vision. And he says that everybody will own an Optimus room. And it's a very visionary speech. You got to go listen to it. I'm a big fan, obviously. You know what I mean? You want to accuse me of being a fanboy, but I mean, I'm a fan of somebody that can help lift people out of poverty with lifting people up.
Now?
What's he doing there? I don't know what he's doing there.
Is that a signal to Mark Carney?
Is it? I don't know what that signal is. I'm not into that, but
it is good though. And he talks about Star Trek. Anybody that likes Star Trek, because the Finkster asks him about his inspiration, like why he bothered,
long and prosper.
why he did what he did, and he starts talking about Star Trek, and he's saying like, kind of want to make that a reality.
He is one of the world's dreamers, and he brings dreams to reality. He is an amazing person. And I use full self-drive. I've been driving a Tesla for about 2.5 years. And they're recognizing down in the United States full self-drive now. If you use full self-drive, the insurance companies in the United States are offering 50% off of insurance. It's that good. So, and they are operating now in Austin completely autonomous. So there is no safety driver in the cars in some of the vehicles right now. So it's happening. The future is happening right now. But hey, the Europeans and Canada doesn't like X and the freedom of speech. We're big fans of freedom of speech. So they've launched their own thing called W. Isn't that just weird? It's almost comical. Instead of coming up with a name, they launched W. Like, what is that? Because it comes before X, W, X, Y, Z. Is that what it is? You know what I mean? Is that kind of thing? And coming right before X is W. Like, get real. Get real. Hey? Live long and prosper. Watch out, Jim's going to use the Vulcan nerve pinch. Yeah, I wish I could use it. W, coming to a nation near you. Hopefully it doesn't come to Canada. But, you know, blue skies here. Like, who uses blue sky? You know who uses it? Stephen Fuhrer. He uses blue sky. He's a virtue signaling guy. He won't answer emails, though, but he'll use blue sky.
It's a very interesting place to visit. I'd encourage people to go there, do a bit of anthropology on blue sky.
I'm going to save this clip for next week because we got lots to get through here. This is just the former CDC saying that COVID wasn't a vaccine. It should be called medicine instead, but we won't play it here today. And then the Americans pulled out of the WHO, which we should do here in Canada, but that's just it. And then, because we're over, but you know, it's the Friday, so we're going to go a little bit over. We're sorry. 3 days. How are you doing for juice? Are you going to make it?
My earplug things are telling me that time's up, but we'll see.
Well, near the end. Anyway, we're going to go really quick then. We're going to go really quick. Decriminalization is 3 years now. 3 years, it's over. Now what, though? Now what? You can go read this story on Kelowna Now. Now what? 3 years, decriminalization. Now what? And then we talked about David Eby here. And during, this is from Harman Bangua, on November 17, 2021, during a province-wide state emergency, he quietly pushed through sweeping changes to a BC law. I talked about this on Beyond the Ballot. Everything under the cover of darkness, DRIPA, all these things under the cover of darkness. We need less darkness. If you believe in your policies, Mr. Eby, you should let them go through the light of day. Let them through the light of day. That's what I have to say. We're going to do some international news here, though.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Apparently, things are looking promising in Russia right now because the Witkoff team there was actually in Russia at meeting with Putin. That's I think at first there they were actually in Moscow there meeting with Putin, and then they scurried off. We're going to play this little clip here and we'll talk over. You can turn the sound off on it. After they talked, after the high-level talks, Witkoff and Kushner leaving Moscow for Abu Dhabi. And sorry, Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi. Sounds like a bad video. And then and then trilateral negotiations about to begin. United States, Ukraine, and Russia. I mean, that's hopeful. Notice Canada's not in there. Nina Nunn didn't make the list. She didn't make the list there for those peace talks. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Maybe
Zelensky is saying. Zelensky's insight is that. You know, don't know if it's true necessarily, but he says it like almost everything's done. It's just about the strip of land that they want to demilitarize between the Ukrainian and Russian forces.
I think Trump, who plays like 4D chess with everybody else, I think that board of peace was another piece dangled in front of Putin. Just like, look, you can join this board of peace, but you can't join the board of peace if you're actually in active war. You have to end the war to join the board of peace. And I think, you know, he's a master at that kind of stuff. But Zelensky is lighting the EU on fire here. Let's listen to Zelensky here as he takes a shot at the EU, the people that were feeding him cash here.
But what about the ceasefire itself? Who can help make it happen? Europe loves to discuss the future, but avoids taking action today, action that defines what kind of future we will have. That is the problem. Why can't President Trump stop tankers from the Strait of Fleet and seize oil, but Europe doesn't? Russian oil is being transported right along European shores. That oil funds the war against Ukraine. That oil helps destabilize Europe. So Russian oil must be stopped and confiscated.
That's good. That's good. I mean, a strongly worded letter is what you'll get from the European Union. They'll send you a strongly worded letter. But we're going to skip through a few things here.
They did. I will say though, they did actually get a Shadow Fleet vessel in the Mediterranean. I think earlier this week, or they announced it anyway. So it is kind of happening.
They watched Trump do, well, 4 years. 4 years. 4 years, right? Anyway.
Yeah.
And then he's also saying that calls on world leaders to act now to create a new world order. And he also called out the Europe must defend itself, sending 14, he mocks them. Europe must learn to defend itself. Sending 14 soldiers to Greenland is meant to achieve what? You know, it's just, you know, they just calls them out. Sorry,
I definitely think we should mention the Keir Starmer and the British.
Sure, let's go with that. Let's go back to that
elite. They are very upset about Trump's comments where he said NATO troops stayed away from the front lines in Afghanistan. It's interesting because have a look at the British world now. Like, look at the BBC or the Telegraph or the Times or anything like that. It's dominated by this story, and it's all about how dreadful Donald Trump is for having said this. And it is a repulsive thing to have said, a really shameful thing to have said that he should take back and apologize for. But just compare that in Britain to Canada. There's barely any reaction to it in Canada, even though, you know, nearly 160 Canadians died in Afghanistan. But there's no, I guess the political class just doesn't really care. But in Britain, they're absolutely outraged. They're furious about this. And I just think that's rather interesting that here in Canada, there's just like, they'd rather talk about ICE than the President of the United States insulting the Canadian war dead.
I do want to play this one clip here from the best takeaway from Davos here, and listen to this clip here. And this is how you could just take this one to the bank here. Not that one, no, the one before it there. Yeah, play this clip here.
How is it that you've been able to go so fast in the first year?
I mean, honestly, as President Trump, he has a tremendous bias for action. I mean, I think you saw it during his speech. This is a tremendously consequential American president. He has a tremendous sense of agency. He wants to get things done. And, you know, I've been in meetings in the Oval Office where you'll describe a problem to him. His first instinct is to pick up the phone. You know, it's like, get so-and-so on the phone. And that could be a senator, or it could be a business leader, or, you know, it could be anybody. And his first instinct is just get him on the phone. Let's work this out right now. You know, any other president would not be like that. You know, you might get a favorable audience, and then the president would say, well, go see this staff person, and then basically nothing would happen. This president wants to get things done as quickly as possible, in that meeting even if he can. And he works incredibly hard, I mean, just constantly working. And so when you compound that effect of just meeting after meeting, day after day, of that problem-solving mindset and wanting to get things done, it really adds up. And I think you can now see the results 1 year later. You see the results in the American economy. It's really pretty incredible. If anyone had said that these would be our numbers after 1 year, I'm not sure anyone.
I just want to point this out because this is important for a couple of reasons. And again, Elon Musk is the same thing. If you listen to what Elon Musk, like, he's looking for solutions all the time. Compare that to Mark. The answer is right here, Canada. The answer is right here. Getting stuff done. Mark Carney is having meetings to have meetings. They're planning for planning. All these things, like a year later, nothing. If you look at what Elon Musk has done, how many companies is he running, leading in the leading companies? How many companies does he run? And he splits his time between SpaceX, the largest space company in the world, Starlink, which is part of it, which is the largest global communications company in the world, Tesla, the leading EV, well, the leading auto manufacturer in the world, robotics with Tesla, solar energy with Tesla, Neuralink, which is going to help blind people see and quadriplegics walk again, the Boring Company. I mean, I can go on and on. You get stuff done because it's like, here's the problem, here's the solution. Here's the problem, here's the solution. So Mark Carney, our energy can't get to a coastline. What's the solution? It's not meetings to have meetings to have meetings to have meetings. Stick a shovel in the ground. Be the first guy. Pick the shovel up. Walk outside. Stick a spade in the ground. Says, I put the first spade in. You put the second one in. You put the third one. You put the fourth one in. But somebody build the goddamn pipeline. Simple, right? Build the damn pipeline. Build the damn pipeline. You want a mining permit?
We're a country run by people with. We're a country run by people with PhDs coming out the wazoo. Surely these are the best people in the world. Can't they figure out how to put a shovel in the ground? Apparently, no. Is our answer.
It's that simple. Do you know what I mean? How does Elon Musk do what he does? How does he run 7 of the world's leading companies? How does Donald Trump, he's got more done, hate him, love him or hate him, he's got more done in a year than most presidents do. Wow, I mean, probably 4 presidents do. He's got more done probably in a week than Joe Biden did in his whole term. It's just ridiculous.
Neither of those men has a PhD.
No, neither one of them. Yeah, and they don't have meetings to have meetings, and Donald Trump provides access to himself relentlessly on the air. How many interviews are done on Carney's plane? How many? How many? Trump finished all his stuff that he did in Davos, and he met with reporters for an hour on the jet home. And it is expected that he does it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if he didn't do it, they would be saying that something's wrong with him. They would say, oh, he's sick, he's dying, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? He does it. He gets off the plane, he talks to reporters. He gets on the plane, he talks to reporters. Our prime minister does, and we have meetings to have meetings. And you listen to Anita and Nan, they're just, Anita and Nan is the counterpart to Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio has got to be, and I know you're going to say, who you're going to say is, well, the living best Secretary of State that I'll ever say. Marco Rubio, look at all the stuff that he's getting done. And if they close this peace deal with Russia and Ukraine, and even the left, the lunatic left media is going to have to concede. But of course, they'd figure out a way to make it seem like it was a bad deal or something like that. But absolutely get stuff done. Mark Carney, it's right there. The answer's right there before you, right there before you. Just watch them for 5 minutes and start doing something. Just start doing something. Just for the love of God, do something. Do something, anything. And here's the numbers. Look at this. Look at this. And we're not going to play the clip because we're long in the tooth here. GDP for the United States for the third quarter, GDP numbers in 4.4. And they're expecting, no, go back one. And they're expecting 5.4 for the quarter 4. Nope. There you go. That's a big economy. That's an economy going chugga, 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 choo, choo, right? How's that, eh? Chugga, 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 choo, choo.
And then, the PhD class will explain to you that this is actually, the figures are distorted because of migration. So that makes it look a bit weird. Look at these countries: Germany, the United Kingdom, Australia, France, the United States. These are countries, Italy as well, Sweden.
Yeah,
These
pull
are
up that one,
countries
the
that have
GDP.
been
Pull up the GDP on there.
drowned in migration.
Pull up the next chart there. Yeah, look, there you go. Right there. Get stuff done. Like you run out of excuses. All these speeches that they're going to a base, like stop watching CBC. Literally stop watching. Cleanse your mind of nonsense. Cleanse your mind. Help independent media. This is the year for independent media. Help. Accountability is the solution. Accountability is the solution. Ask questions. It makes us compete. If you compete, you get better. If you run slower than the guy next to you, what do you got to do? Get up next morning, run. Get better, right? Get better. You don't phone somebody and complain that person's running better than you. So how can we cripple that person? That seems to be the liberal way. How can we cripple that person so that they can't run fast?
How can we make them feel ashamed of their speed?
I'm ashamed of them running. And then look at the results too. When you fight crime and you do all these things, look at this. This is the crime and overdose numbers in the United States. Go back. Look at this. Since a 21% drop in homicides since 2024. When you get tough on crime. Canada, still nothing. 43%
Yeah,
drop.
I read some article that they're looking at having the lowest homicide numbers in 2025 for like a century or something like that. I'm going to have to look into that a bit more, but crazy, absolutely mad.
We need to get rid of the identity politics, all that other stuff, and focus on the meat and potatoes. And less taxation, less regulation, and all this stuff. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. The liberals are doing nothing and they're being shielded by the CBC. You got to remove their shield. You got to remove their shield so they're exposed to people asking questions. But that's our show for today. I do have 3 interviews today. I do have the mayor at noon, and then I have a couple other city councilors later in the day. And we're going to try and get an interview with Ezra Levant. Ian's going to do that. I just told him that. And then because he broke the biggest story in Canada. And independent media, and help us spread the word. Help us get this out to a bigger audience. And you know what? If they put Ian and I and replace David Cochran and Rosie Barton and just gave us a small plate of sausage rolls, I guarantee we would do a better job there at the CBC than Rosie Barton and David Cochran. We could kick their ass, and I would bet everything I have on that any day of the week. What about you? Any closing thoughts for the week?
I'm just imagining us kicking the derriere of Rosie Barton.
Or are you just enamored by that plate of sauce? They have a bucket underneath the desk, right? They literally have a bucket underneath the desk.
Look, it's a pretty good gig, isn't it? Unlimited sausage rolls. I mean, they go up to a sausage roll dispenser with their bucket, don't they? It's like,
and all they have to do is they just got two things: defend the Liberal Party. Okay, got it. Right, tick. Right, defend the Liberal Party. Okay, let's go. There we go.
Yeah. Attack Polyev.
Attack Polyev, right? And then
reprimand Polyev. Naughty, naughty boy.
And then the CBC is going to send their bots after us, and the Liberal Party. We had a few today. We had a few come in today that were after us because, they don't like what we say. They don't like the cut of our jib, I guess, right? Cut of our jib, eh? And they want to deport you.
Yeah, suddenly their attitude to migration changes, doesn't it?
They want to deport you. Anyway, we should try to get Doug Ford on. Let's try.
I'm a subject of the king.
A subject of the king. You're subjected to the king. Anyway, that's our show. We went a little long in the tooth, and we're back next week at 9 a.m. Every weekday. The Really Big Show every weekday at 9 a.m. PST. And this show's getting bigger. We're at 1 million views now. We'll show you the graphic of that on Monday. 1 million views this month we hit. So thank you for that. And we remember when we started this out, some people are on here saying, we had like 20 people watching and that. So we appreciate everybody, and we appreciate especially the regulars, Diane, Faith, Charles, killing it there. All the guys that come by, Heidi, a lot of these people come, Sherry, everybody that comes back on a regular basis, Danny, all the people that come back on a regular basis. It's kind of like family. And my 2 cents, again, Valiant Goat, Old Goat. There's a lot of goats in there for sure. And
we like goats.
And Wally, of course, we thank you. And like Faith said, God bless, and have a safe weekend, and look out for your family. Cheers until next week. Thank you for watching Now Media.